Hi, everybody. This is week 7. We're just moving along really fast. A couple of administrative announcements. First one, the end of this week, that will be the 14th, wait a minute, the 11th of October, a Monday. I'll send around grades for the first half of the posts. The posts have been great. They've been really good. And that's worth 17.5% of the course grade right there. And also, another announcement is the portfolio, as you know, is due in a couple of weeks. I forget you know the date, but it's coming up. And also December or November 12th is when the research paper is due. And I've been urging you a couple of times to consider the two together so that you're working on both of them at once, so that by the time you get to November 12th, you'll have that well out of the way, and by that time you'll have in hand the final exam, which you got almost a month to work on. You have to get in. Everybody gets it in sooner than that, but you have until December 9th to get that in. So in terms of key dates, I would just suggest you think of the research paper and the portfolio in kind of the same light. The portfolio gets up there, but probably almost always one of those portfolio topics is what you're writing your research paper on, so that you're doing one, you can be working on the other. And don't forget, I've got some pretty good samples of what a good research paper looked like, and I actually talked about that on a lecture last week. So that's it for administrative announcement. Now this week is really easy to describe what we're doing, and I'm going to start taking you to my a message I got. Here's a message I got from ESEYE. It's a big organization that works on IoT, the Internet of Things. And if you haven't heard of IoT, I hope that by the time this week is over, you'll know a lot more about it and have some of your own comments about it. There have been major legislation in the Congress about IoT, and if you think that if you think some of these other things are complicated, AI and all the rest of it, add IoT in the mix and see what you've got. Anyway, this is from an organization that sells IoT services, and they're saying the global enterprise demand is increasing. And there's a webinar on digital transformation, IoT, Tech Expo North America, IoT and Oil and Gas Conference, and just a whole bunch of others. So and plus IoT in the news, how UK business community embraced IoT. Now this I agree is a for-profit organization, and some of the reports that we've seen already from IBM and other for-profit organizations, but it's pretty interesting, and I believe it adds up to this. IoT is a really, really big deal. That's why we've got a whole week on it, and I'm not going to say much about it. I'll take you to the website in a moment. I'm just going to simply say I'm really anxious to know what you think about this, because there's so much going on in that field, in that sector, you might say, in that space, that I'm really anxious to hear what you have to say, have to think about it. So now I'm going to take you to the course site. And here it is, and I don't usually concentrate on the LOs because you can read those. Reviewing the amazing variety of connections to the Internet of Things. The whole idea of this is there's tens of billions of things that you can connect to the Internet. It's not just your refrigerator and your Wi-Fi and your doors and windows and all that kind of stuff. There's just a bunch of stuff. And this is all about those interconnections. A lot of people, you've seen these ads for people who are able to, they're on a tropical island somewhere, and they remember that they didn't close the windows in their bedroom, so they just press a button and it all just takes place magically that way. That's part of IoT. Analyzing some of the potential scenarios, positive and negative, I would think mostly negative in this course, that are being considered as the Internet of Things is deployed. And then this is your job, researching some of the late-breaking stories in IoT. So I'm hoping you're going to be coming up with fresh examples that are happening all this week. So here it is. There's I guess a good warm-up here. This is about hacking a coffee machine, but I believe it epitomizes the whole subject of IoT. And there's a really good, these are projections from that same company. These are IoT projections, and you've seen this kind of reports before, but and remember, they're trying to sell IoT services. But anyway, this is another item on the list that we have. And I think there's the IoT Cybersecurity Improvement Act of 2020, and so I don't need to say much more about this than China's IoT, how blockchain and IoT helping COVID vaccine shipments, just a huge number of things. As usual, I put some asterisks on them, but I don't think you pay too much attention to those asterisks. I hope you do a little bit, but they're basically there to guide you to what I think is important. But I've seen that you're pretty good judges of what's important too. A couple of good videos for you to consider, and that's about it really. At the end, I've got some. We do have that special package, the part of the course where you can go and get a lot of articles on any topic. Well, on IoT, these are articles I pulled right off of that package. This is optional, but other readings you may want to consider that I pulled right off of that list. It's a very vast list. It has hundreds and hundreds of citations on some of our topics. And finally, portfolios, October 18th, research paper, November 12th. If you consider them both as a package, I think you'll really it'll work really well. And by the way, I'm going to change this, but it says A through K summaries. It's A through F surnames the next week, and this week it's G through Z. I'll change that. I'm sorry. Every now and then I forget to do that. But that's it. I think we're doing okay, and I hope that you'll find this week particularly intriguing because it's the only topic we got. It's just by itself, but it's a gigantic one. Hope you enjoy week 7.